Architectural Builder Supply is pleased to present you with this recording of the technical question that is listed in the title of this video.
This call may be monitored and recorded for quality assurance.
So you have a I'm sorry. You have a door.
Yes.
Describe the door to me.
It's going to be, I assume I've never done one of these before. It'll be a bunch of cabinet doors on the front and drawer fronts. They'll all be false, and then they will be screwed to a piece of MDF or plywood, and then it will be hung, be like 32 inches wide and 8 foot tall. But she wants it to swing both ways.
Okay. How thick is it?
Probably like 1.5 inches.
Oh, okay. So pretty thin. That's awesome. So 1.5 inches, that's going to get pretty close to being too thin, but I think you'll be okay. So if you wanted to swing both ways, I'm imagining from 0, it's going to go 90-degree in, back to 0, then negative 90 out, correct?
Yes, and then we need it to be like fixed where it lands. Do these things have stops on them?
You mean like to hold open in like a 90-degree position?
No, to hold. What this is, she's wanting it to look like it's kitchen cabinets, so it would need to lay in line with them at 90, I guess, or 0, or whatever you want to call it. Is that making any sense?
Not yet. So, give it to me one more time.
Okay, it's a kitchen cabinet door that is going into a pantry, but this whole wall is all kitchen cabinets, so she don't want it to look like it's a residential door.
Yeah.
So when she walks in to the pantry, it'll open in, and then it'll swing back to where it needs to be in line with the kitchen cabinets, or it can swing out. I don't know why she wants it to swing out, but that's what she wants.
What's going to keep the door mechanically engaged in the closed position?
That's where I'm calling you too.
Okay.
I mean, you've got your hinges, I see, where you mount them on the top and the bottom. And maybe I'm totally looking at the wrong ones, but I wasn't sure if they have an indent in them or something where they find there's like an old cafe door where they fall back in their own position where they need
gravity.
To stop.
Yeah, cafe pivots are gravity controlled.
Okay, yeah.
So we need some way for the client to be able to position it in the closed position and have the reveal really nice. Okay.
Really nice, yeah.
So does any functionality of it needing to be self-closing be part of the design?
Probably she would want that.
Okay.
Just walk through it, and then it drops back in place.
Well, it wouldn't drop. I mean, if it dropped, you'd have a huge margin at the top of the door.
Okay, I understand. Yeah, but like the cafe door, it actually goes up, and then it swings back and drops down. Yeah.
So if it was self-centering or self-closing, your problem of it finding the 0 would be solved.
Okay.
It'll always go back to 0. So the only way to do this is to use an either overhead door closer concealed up in the header or a closer mounted in the floor. And that material can be pretty concealed, especially if you exert effort to make it concealed. Assuming that sort of concept was not patently disagreeable, the next problem would be you would have to treat the pivot style of the door in such a way that would permit you to hold a really tight margin to the jamb, let's say, the casework.
Yeah, because she's talking about inset doors, which on the kitchen cabinets, we usually try and do a 1/16 of an inch all around. But as I was flopping through these websites, it said something about an 1/8 inch reveal, an 1/8 inch gap around the doors.
Inset. Yeah, I understand the term reveal. We would call it inset when it comes to doors. At least I would.
Okay. Right.
I mean, the reveal, how far you kick the door in from the plane of the, frame structure is, it's wherever you put it. Obviously, the deeper in you go, you're going to limit your maximum degree of opening.
Okay.
But think of a standard door where you have 1/8 of an inch between the edge of the door and the jamb.
Yes.
You would need to radius your door style to maintain 1/8 of an inch. If you don't, you're going to have to increase that gap to account for the square edge nature of the door. So if you can make
so thick, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, 1.5 inches is thin, and I think that you're probably going to have to make that 1.75 inches.
Okay.
But we'd have to look at the template, but it wouldn't have to be any thicker than that. So
okay.
The most elegant approach is probably a floor closer that you can create. I assume that there's a wood floor that you can create.
Yes.
A cover plate, in air quotes, made out of wood that can be dropped in place to cover the body that's going to be mounted in the floor. You'll have a top pivot, and the term to use is center hung. The vertical axis of pivoting runs down in the center of the thickness of your door, and that it is a certain distance measured from the jamb to that vertical center line.
Okay. Go ahead.
Making it self-closing, I don't have an elegant way to do that.
Okay.
If self-closing can be lived without, then I don't have an elegant way for it to find zero very well without mechanically pushing it to zero over hardware that would be exposed.
Well, let's say we go back that way. Well, it would just have like a catch, a bullet catch in the top is the only thing I can think of.
Well, that concept would certainly work. Yeah.
But I'm sure you've got something better.
Well, no, it's the same concept. It's just the only place where it's going to get more evolved is when you talk about the strike. You would use a strike that would be a double-lipped strike so that the bullet can approach it from either side.
Either side.
What would make life super easy is to make this single-acting and not double-acting.
Well, yeah, that's what because I was just thinking what you were saying about having to round each side to clear the jamb, and because these things are inset three quarters of an inch, is that right? The pivot point, from what I read.
No. If you've seen a dimension that refers to 3/4, that refers to the face of the door to the vertical axis of pivoting in an offset scenario. We're dealing with double acting, so we're dealing with center hung and not offset. So the concept of 3/4 inch does not apply.
Okay, I'm looking at ABH one now here.
Well, they don't make closers; they make pivots.
Okay, but see, that's what I was thinking. I was needing to buy this ABH 0128.
Yeah, that would be a great contender. It will not find center, and it will not self-close.
Right. So it's just going to free swing.
That's it.
Is that right?
It's going to hang your door and do so very, very elegantly.
Right. So then what do you sell for a catch then?
Well, you can put any roller latch onto the top rail of the door or in the style of the door. You need to order a double acting. You need to order a strike that will be the depth of the jamb, that will have a lip on either side. And that jamb depth can be whatever it is. it could be the same thickness of the door. It could be 5
Right.
inch. It could be whatever.
Right. Yes. Okay. But then when that door swings both ways, I'm still going to have. Okay, if I use the center hung pivot set, how far is that pivot point from the jamb?
That would be based on the template of the device being considered, but let's say
Okay.
that it's somewhere in the 1.25 inch range.
Okay.
That dimension would only apply when it's time to, get your router out.
Right.
It's
Well,
some dimension like 1.25 inch. It doesn't really matter.
Yeah, right. But what I'm saying is, how's that door going to swing if it's that close to the jamb and we only got an 1/8 inch there?
We've already discussed it. You have to either increase the dimension from an 1/8 to maybe, I don't know that that 0.25 would be required, but you're going to be in that range for sure. Or you radius it.
Right.
Think of the top row of tile in your bathroom. That's bullnose. If you do a double bullnose,
Sure,
it's a radius.
Sure. Okay.
And that's how you would account for that. The downside of that is
The front side.
it's going to alter the design.
Yeah. Okay. That's where I was going back to, because we'll have to round the front too, and that's not going to be what she wants.
Yeah.
So
you got to radius
we'll
it completely.
Yeah. Sure. I understand that. Okay. Do you sell the strike plates?
I sell all of that. Everything we've discussed, I sell.
Yeah, that's what I thought. So, I thought I looked for strike plates before and I couldn't find them.
Yeah, well, they're unusual. I only sell a handful a year, and where you see them is in hospitals. Believe it or not, in patient room bathrooms.
I read about that. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So you've read them or seen them. Yeah, it's the same. It's literally the same concept.
Yeah, I was on your website there, and I read about that strike plate like that. So that's the one that you would sell for this.
Yes, that is precisely what we're talking about. Yes, sir.
Okay. So what do most people do if they want that to come and close by itself? I mean,
they put floor closers
the only
in.
Floor closers. I'll have to read up on that. That's what you talked about too.
Yeah, you have double acting, and that's the problem. If it was single acting, you can use sauce hinges, and they make a spring-loaded version of it. But double acting gets into, you need a piece of hardware that's going to self-close that door. Interestingly enough, Rixson in going back to the 1920s, manufactured a surface-mounted door closer, just like the one you see every day, that would double act. A really cool gizmo. But anyway, so yeah, I mean, here is the downside of the floor closer. You have to make that radius, and then it's going to be expensive to do this. And you'll have to make not insignificant accommodations to the floor to support the body and the weight that the body is going to carry. The door has to be manufactured out of material that is substantial. It will have to have hardwood rails. Hardwood rails to mortise to. Otherwise what you'll hear is when it works, you'll hear a creaking sound when you've got insufficient material that you've screwed to. But we've done it, and it looks great. You hardly see much of it. And at the end of the day, that radius that you see, some people get by with a really tight radius, and you kind of don't notice it after a while. And the client says, yeah, I could live with that in order to have what I want.
Okay, sure.
The question becomes, how many of these installations has this client ever seen? None.
None.
So it's not something you bump into.
None. Pinterest, Pinterest or house.
Sure. Oh yeah. Right. Exactly. But those houses, you know where those are located, right? Encinitas, California, Naples, Florida, Palm Beach, where
high end.
Okay. Well, high end, an order of high end to an exponential power.
Yeah.
So,
this ain't. I mean, it is, but it's not. But Yes, I understand that. So do you sell the sauce ones?
Yeah, but all that stuff is single acting.
Single acting, but they do have one that'll bring it back to zero. They've got a spring built into it. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. Sauce, it's a concealed hinge. It sounds like you're familiar with it. They make a version of the 216 and the 218 with a giant spring in it that you push the door and you compress that spring and it says, great, let me go and I'll close the door. But it's spring power. And that's not very elegant. That may not be what the client has in mind.
Oh,
the downside of the roller latch, and I have to mention this before I forget again in this conversation, is that I've had people complain in a residential application over the sound that the nylon wheel makes as it hits and finds center on the strike. I had one client one time absolutely feel as if someone just mistakenly threw paint on the Mona Lisa. No, they told me to throw paint on it, like it was the worst thing possible. And they literally wanted double acting doors in their bathrooms in their home. How are you going to keep it in the latch position? How do you do it? So be mindful that it makes a measurable amount of sound that to some people might be a reason to not pay you. Which is what happened to me.
Okay, understand. So, all right. Well, I'll do some more research here on your website. You gave me some good things to look at and to understand more. So
my name is Richard. My email is under Contact Us in the upper right-hand corner of the site. If you want to follow up with some links, send me. Say we talked. Send me this and that. I'll be happy to do it.
Okay. Thanks a lot, Richard, for your time.
Thank you, sir. Bye-bye.
You have a good day. Bye.
Bye.
Architectural Builders Supply hopes you have enjoyed this program.